It always takes a second. We're live! Hello, YouTube. I am here today with my good friend RM Olson, who writes these like fucking amazing queer sci-fi situations, and they are currently branching out into queer horror rom-com type stuff too. Which I feel like saying like, "Oh, that kind of thing," like that type of thing is kind of weird because it's like very niche.
A
Like
little niche,
horror rom-coms.
that kind of stuff.
um yeah, so we have known each other for about 5 years now. We
Yeah.
beta read each other's stuff, except when I flake out and forget, and they're just like, "I gotta fucking publish this, dude."
In your defense, I think someone asked me how many books I had, and I was like, I didn't know. And then they were like, it's more than 20, right? So you have beta read more than 20. I feel like that's a.
Meanwhile, I have 8.
Because you're
So
so busy beta reading all my crap.
so you're winning. Unless like somebody is one of those like literary snobs who's like, if you write that fast, you can't possibly be writing well. And it's just
Oh,
like,
I've,
that's just not
I've
accurate.
heard that. And
Um,
I'm like, all right, like, do you know how to read my stuff better?
right. I it always kind of like hits home for me too when people say that, because when I was a kid, my mother would like pull that shit whenever I like did my chores. She was just like, "Well, you didn't do a good job because you just did that in 20 minutes." And I'm like, "You haven't even looked at it. Like just go look at it." And then she would come back and she'd be like, "Okay." And like over and over, and I'm just like, "Do you not learn? Like you have a PhD. Like what are we doing here? Like come on."
Well, and the thing is too, like, it doesn't. Okay, so I pre-author was a lawyer, and I worked with a lawyer who had ADHD. Actually, that's sort of how I figured out I had ADHD, because he kept being like, "Oh yeah, I do this," and I was like, "Doesn't everyone do that?" And I was like, "Wait." But he said he was like, the difference between neurotypical brains and like neurodivergent brains, or like ADHD specifically, he's like, you know the neurotypical people will go out, they're like the farmers, like they go out and they like plant their little seeds, and then every day they go out and hoe them, and then they water them, and then they weed them. And he's like, ADHD brains are like the hunter gatherers, like we just sit on our butts for a month, and then we go out in like 2 hours, we like kill a friggin' moose and haul it home. So like it's just like your brain works differently. Like I write fast because that's what my brain does. I couldn't write slow if I tried. It would make me cry. But like I know other neurotypical people, or even not neurotypical people, who aren't ADHD, who just like, they just do like a few, they have this like schedule where they're like, every day I write so much. And I'm like people are like, how much do you write a day? And I'm like, which day? Like
Yeah.
sometimes 12,000 words, sometimes 0 words for a week at a time.
Yeah. I
That's
don't have ADHD, so I don't do that. Um, but I also like can't write like a certain amount every single day. I've tried. I have
right.
tried so hard
Oh
to be
gosh,
like,
me too.
okay, I'm gonna write 3,000 words every single day, and then that's gonna get my book written. Woo! And it doesn't work because I'm autistic and I need time to recover if I'm gonna try to do something like that. Like, that's just not gonna work for me. And also because, like, okay, yes, I consider myself a full-time author at this point in history. Like, I have some side gigs, but like, I don't have a full-time day job. I have, I
This
just
is your
cobble
full-time
together
day job,
things, and yeah, and my focus is on writing. So,
which is so
but
cool, by the way.
but I still have other shit going on. And again, as an autistic person, I can't just like put my day into little modules. Like I can't do that. Like I'm going to have to take time and I'm going to have to do what my brain wants to do at any given time. Like, I can't just say, all right, at 9 o'clock every morning, I'm going to write. Because some days at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm good to start writing. And some days I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling kind of analytical. I'm going to do some like data stuff and like figure out what my next business step is. And sometimes at 9 a.m., I'm like, oh, fuck, I have this editing job to do. I should do that because I can't just like tell myself I'm going to do that later in the day because you know what
Yeah.
I
No, I
mean?
know.
It doesn't fucking work.
It doesn't. And then the thing is too, like, it's so hard. Like, for example, like today, I had my whole day. I was like, I'm already behind. I mean, that's the other thing about ADHD is I always overschedule. I always overcommit because I think like as fast as I write, I always think I write faster. I'm like, oh, I could probably get a book done in like a week. That'd be fine. I just have to write really fast. Like, no, I can't. Like, smack. Like, but I'm like, oh well, I'm gonna plan for it because it'll probably be fine. So like, I'm behind obviously, and I was like, okay, so I got a bunch of stuff to get done. I have stuff I've got to send off to my cover artist. So I was like, get up, and then I was gonna take my dog in, get her nails trimmed, get home, get a bunch of stuff done, and then come talk with you. Well, I wake up, get my kids out the door, then I go downstairs, and oh, guess what? My teenager's still in his bedroom, and I'm like, sweetheart. He's like, well, you said you didn't have time to drive me to school, and I missed the bus, so I guess I'm staying home. And I'm like, no, you're not. So get him in the car, drive like 40 minutes. High school is forever away. Drive him to high school, bring him back. And then I'm like, oh crap, I got to take the dog in. So I take the dog in. And then I was like, oh crap, I haven't done my grocery shopping. I got to do that. And then like, I haven't done any of the 17 things that I was going to have done by this point in the day yet. I'm halfway through my breakfast. Like, that's where we are.
Yeah.
I have not had coffee yet. But it's just like yeah, if I get too married to like I'm gonna do this in a day, I inevitably just end up like by the end of the day being like I hate everything because it doesn't work. Like you just have to you have to you have to put flexibility in. And I tried for so many years to not. I tried for so many years to just push through, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. It's just it makes you hate everything, and you also still don't get anything done.
Yeah, those, yeah. Neurotypical people are fine. Like, I'm not one of those like neurodivergent people who's like, ew, neurotypical people. But like the systems that like neurotypical people tell you to use are not going to work for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just
And
doesn't.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't have very many author friends or artist friends who are okay. Maybe not all of them have diagnoses, but I would be really surprised if like I can't even think of one off the top of my head that I'm like, oh, that person might be neurotypical. Like I feel like creative professions tend to attract people whose brains work a little differently.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure there's neurotypical people who do this stuff. I'm 100% sure. I just don't know any.
Yeah. I
and
was
so it always
chatting. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, it just I mean it always makes me like when people are like, this is how it works and this is how you do it. I'm like, this is not the community that you should be giving directives to. This, you know, this is how things work. Like this is not the community to be doing
And
that.
yet it persists. Like, the indie author community is rife with people going, well, this worked for me, so it's gonna work for you. And it's like, but no. And like, I don't know, I have started just blocking that shit out. And like, there are definitely like author business, for lack of a better word, guru people whose advice I do pay attention to. But those people, either their brain does in fact work similarly to mine, or in most cases, what they're saying is not, this worked for me, so it'll work for you. What they're saying is, here are some ways in which different people have found success. Find which one works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And like, those are helpful because then you can kind of look at an array of things and go, okay, you know what? this seems like something I can do, and so does this, and I'm gonna like combine those and make my own little like thingamabobber.
Yeah. Well, and I find it so funny, like just with writing in general, right? Like it's this weird combination between like the muse and like a business, right? Like
Hmm.
again, like I've heard so many times people saying like, oh, if you write that fast, it must be bad writing. And I've had people like who have talked like I think I was on a podcast once and the person who was interviewing me had read one of my books and he asked my writing process and I told him and he's like, that's really fast. He's like, I've read your books. They're really like they're good. They don't feel like they've been written that fast. And I'm like, I don't write crap. Like because I write fast, it doesn't mean I write crap. But also, that's just that's how I work. And also, I have a system that works for me. Like there are some days I just cannot get words down, but there's some days that I don't feel like it, and I'm just like, okay, well, I'm gonna set a timer for 20 minutes and write as much as I can, possibly can in those 20 minutes. And I'm absolutely not feeling the muse, but I still get good word like I get
Hmm.
good stuff written. At the end, I'm like, wow, that was actually pretty good.
A lot
So,
of times when I do something like that, I will just keep writing too. Like it's just
mhm,
that you got to get that
yeah, it gets you
started.
started.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just like, and then there's that balance between like, so how much do you sit there and go, well, I'm waiting for the inspiration to strike, and how much is it just like I'm gonna force myself to do it even if I don't? And I think it's a balance, and I think it's different for everyone. Like I think I've kind of finally got to a point where I know for myself when I'm sitting down and I'm like, okay, this I do not want to write. I can kind of tell like, is this an I don't want to write because, and then if I push through, I'll be fine, or is this an I don't want to write and I'll be sitting at my computer for 8 hours just staring at the screen and getting nothing down, and then like feeling like a total failure because not only did I not write, I also didn't do anything else. Um, and like I think I'm at the point where I know that for myself, but I think everybody like. I think you have to come to that by yourself. Like, there's not a prescriptive way to say this is when you push through, this is when you wait for the muse, because either one of those is unhealthy.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess waiting for the muse is probably not unhealthy, but you probably won't write very much.
I mean, yeah, I think waiting for the muse looks differently for people too. Like, if I'm feeling uninspired and I'm like, I need to wait for the muse, I'm not gonna sit down and stare at my computer and wait. I'm gonna go for a walk and
Mm-hmm.
go, okay. And like, that's science. Like, I've read articles about, like, studies that have shown that moving can help some people's brains
Oh
go.
yeah.
And for me, that works. And so if I'm gonna, like, if I need inspiration for a project I'm working on, I will go for a walk. If I need inspiration and I decide, you know what, I don't need to be working on Warrior Mage Librarians, I don't need to be working on whatever project I'm working on, I want to do like a one-off thing. I have like a folder in my email. I get like prompts emailed to me through a subscription. And so like I will go there and I'll just like scroll through and find a prompt and I'll write, a short story or a flash fiction or whatever. And sometimes that'll turn into a whole thing. I mean, my Rhymes with Witch series started out as a piece of flash fiction that started with a prompt, and it's 3 books
I
now.
love
And
that series.
I'm planning to write a second arc probably next year. So,
Okay, so I have a question for you.
yeah.
Um, because I do the same thing. Like I swear I plotted my entire Ungovernable series on dog walks. Um, that was, but like I find I do that. Like I sit there and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write, and I'm like sitting there and I'm like trying to write, and I'm doing everything except writing. Like I've checked Facebook 700 times. You know, I've like everything that you could possibly do. I've done, and I'm like, no, no, just write. Like please, brain, please write. And like if I actually get up and go walk my dog or something, then I get a fresh perspective. But like half the time I'm sitting there and I'm just like trying to force myself to write. And like going for a walk feels like quitting. So I don't do it. And then I don't do anything, right? Like, how do you get out of that? Like, okay, like how do you get to the point where you're like, okay, I am stuck. I'm not gonna unstick until I do something. Because for me, it feels like I'm like either quitting or like I guess I mean, like I feel like I'm like, oh, well, I'm just being like I should be working because like here's the thing. I'm a single parent. I have 4 kids. There's a lot of people that depend on my work getting done
Mm.
in a timely manner, which is stressful. And so if I'm like going for a walk, even though intellectually I can tell myself like I am doing this because I need this to write, like in my heart it feels like I'm being a lazy little scumbag and I'm just wasting time. I don't know. How do you like? Are you just like better at that, or is there
I think
like
so.
you
Yeah.
just get stuck and be like, ah,
Not to
yeah,
like
I
lord it
guess.
over you, but no, I don't have that problem. I just don't I guess I don't care if I'm a quitter. I don't know.
Fair.
Like, but like I also like I don't have kids. Like I don't have that responsibility. I have like a pretty low rent payment that is covered by one of my side gigs like every month, and I like I don't know, not to brag or anything, but I have been well below the poverty line my entire adult life, and so I just know how to, like, finagle that shit, and, like, I just like, I don't worry about it, but that's a luxury, you know, like, that's something that I can do, like and that sounds weird to be like, "It's a luxury to be very, very poor," but it kind of is because it's freeing, you know?
No, I get
Um,
it.
and
Well,
also, like, I don't know, I identify very strongly as a chaos goblin, and so, like, I just like, that's part of who I am, and so like, a chaos goblin can do that. A chaos goblin can just be like, "Fuck it, I don't wanna write right now, I'm gonna go for a walk." And then as a chaos goblin, again, like, it's fine if in the middle of my walk, I'm just like, "Oh, shit, that's a great idea," and I get out my phone and I start writing, like, sit down on a park bench and start writing, you know? Like, that's part of who I am, and I do that, you know? Or I, come up with the ideas and then I get home and but well, and you, I don't know if you still do this, but I know you used to like dictate like
yeah,
on your walks. So
yeah,
like, yeah, something like that. Like,
that
how is that
was
quitting? You're walking
that's
and you're
true.
writing.
No, it was easier when I was dictating. So sad story. I got this really like I got my dictating software and it was working so well. And then my computer, anyway, it's a long story, but the long and short of it was I tried to do this stupid update and then it wasn't working. And so I called their stupid helpline and they told me to do a stupid thing that ended up crashing my entire computer. I lost everything. Luckily, I had everything backed up to the cloud because, like, I'm paranoid. This has happened to me before. So everything is backed up to the cloud, but I now have to. It's been like 4 months, and I haven't gone through and found how to re-download this thing because it's like a big process, and there was like licenses and stuff, and I don't know where they all are. And so I'm like, well, I can't dictate anything until I re-download that, and that just feels like a big job. So
Oh, that
So
sucks.
it's stupid. Again, it's just one of those. I think it's the same thing with the going on the walk. I'm like, if I did this thing, that would probably take me maybe an hour, maybe probably not even an hour. Then my whole life would be freed up. But like, there's like this huge, like 500-foot concrete wall between me and doing that thing.
Yeah, you should break it down. Oh, I'm holding a hammer. You should
There
break
you
it down.
go. No, okay. So I think I told you this, but all my children are also ADHD and very impulsive, and all the hammers in my house are hidden. Like I don't even remember where I put them. I have a
You know
hammer.
I was speaking metaphorically though, right?
Well, I know, but like, but in real life, my children would break it down with a hammer or possibly a hatchet or maybe maybe a power tool. I don't know. Um, so I just need to do that also. Take my hammer. No. Uh, that's why we all need basic universal income
Yeah,
because then it'd be less stressful.
yeah.
People could just do creative stuff and not stress about it as much.
Mhm. Or anarchy.
More anarchy with universal basic income.
Well, I mean, if there's anarchy, you don't need income, you don't need money,
Okay,
like,
that's
that's
fair.
Um, I won't. I could talk about anarchy for a long time. I
I
feel
actually
very
want to talk about
strongly.
anarchy with you for a while, for a long time. Maybe not right this very moment, but
I feel very strongly that anarchy is the only fair system, but also that, like, if we just switched to anarchy right now, it wouldn't work because everybody is so traumatized
everybody's
by
trained.
capitalism that
Well,
nobody could trust each other. I actually just, like, literally right before this live stream, I just posted a thing about this on my Substack.
oh, I'm gonna find your subject. But have you read this book? Boom. I don't know if you can see it or it's backwards. It's called Humankind.
I have not read it. No.
It's really interesting. I'm really enjoying it. But they like the author like because like when I was a kid, I always heard like, oh, government is what it's that whole Hobbesian like, life was nasty, brutish, and short. Um, without government structures to hold us in check, we would all just, you know, turn into murderous animals. But but it's interesting because this guy kind of goes with the opposite. Like but he's like he doesn't just theorize. He like takes evidence and like it's very well researched. But he said like research tends to show that people tended to be very peaceful
Mhm.
and sort of community minded and friendly up until about city states, up
Mhm.
until about we started to settle down into cities and resources started. You started to have a more hierarchical type society or a society where you
Mhm.
could hoard things, and that's tended to be when you started to see these problems. I mean, his uh, conclusion was essentially the same as yours, that the reason people tend to be nasty, brutish, and whatever is more a side effect of civilization, capitalism,
Mhm.
than a reason for it.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like our society is this weird blend too of, like, oligarchy with, like, a thin veneer of meritocracy, where people think, whether or not it's true, and for some people I think it has been true and for others it is not, but people think that if you are clever and strong and smart and talented, you will rise to the top, i.e., a meritocracy. Whereas in reality, the people whose ancestors did that are mostly in charge, with a few people rising to the top. But it drives me crazy when people think that that's fair because, like, yeah, I get where you're coming from of, like, everyone can do whatever they want, like, if they're, like, good enough. But the fact of the matter is that if somebody has a lower IQ or their talents lie in an area that is considered worth less, they don't deserve to still be in poverty because of that.
No, well, and what's interesting too is the way we measure worth and intellect is so um, it's not it's stupid really, is what I'm trying to say, because we say if you're smart, if you have a higher IQ. I mean, first of all, if you look at the stats, places like I think America had one of the lowest ranks of countries where you actually could move, like people could change
I believe it,
socioeconomic.
yeah.
People places like Sweden and Denmark where they have a lot more income equality, much higher taxes, and a lot more social programs, had a much higher rate of people being able to move from one socioeconomic
Because their
bracket
needs
to
are
yeah.
met.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I am in a really privileged position. I worked as a lawyer before, working as an author, and I do that as a side gig. So, like, if I get to a point where I'm like, I literally don't know how I'm going to pay my bills this month, I can call up my law firm that I contract work for and say, hey, do you have some extra work? And I can make that happen. Okay, so like I have the luxury of doing what I'm doing in large part, if not in whole, because of that. And the reason I can do that is because I was able to go to law school. And the reason I was able to go to law school, like all of that, like I come from a very privileged position. And at the same time, I'm in a position that's difficult because I've got four uh, high needs children, and sort of no family support and very little, I am basically responsible for everything to do with the children. So so on the one hand, I have the privilege of being able to work as an author because of the privilege that I had, like whatever got me here. And then on the other hand, like so often, like I was saying, like I find myself struggling with creative stuff because I'm like under so much pressure to, keep my children alive, like make enough money to be able to pay the bills. And and then I think about all these other people who are, you know, I have another friend who he's working on a book, but he uh can barely pay his, but like it's just much there's so much creative and like scientific and just everything genius that we are keeping down because we're not letting people thrive, because people are so worried about staying alive that they can't um do the thing that they're good at
Yeah.
doing, whether that is something prestigious like science or
Mhm.
medicine or whatever, or it's something maybe somebody is just really fantastic at kindergarten, like working with kindergartners. Like that is still a super valuable skill that we
Yeah.
don't give credit to.
Yeah. Or I think of like you mentioned medicine, right? So there are so many people who become doctors because they want to make a lot of money, not because they want to help people become well, right? And there are
Mm-hmm.
a lot of other people who would love to be doctors because they want to help people become well, but they can't because they don't have the money to go to school. And in a system where that goes away, the people who became doctors just for money can be doing something else that actually means something to them because they don't need that financial security.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who want to help you get well can become doctors because, again, they're not struggling to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But here we
Well,
are.
and I think like even just taking it back to like writing and stuff. So I have like I've been trying like so for the past few years, I can't remember, I think it was around it's been less than 10 years basically. But I heard an author of color give a speech, and I don't even remember who she was, or like I just remember that she said something about how if you want to read books by people who are not basically white, mostly men, some women, but white, you kind of have to look for them because they don't tend to get the publicity. And
Mhm.
so I've kind of gone out of my way to like I try like I every so often I'll go to my books, like I'll go to my like reading list, and I'm like, how many of these were written by white people and how many weren't? And I try to keep it 50-50. But it's not just because I'm like, oh, virtue signaling. It's because most of the books that I've really, really enjoyed, like most of the authors that I found, I'm like, this is incredible, have been books that I found by intentionally diversifying what I'm looking for. But I had to do that. Like that was because I was intentionally going and doing that, not because people were like, this is a great book. And like I'm now kind of have sort of curated my social media, whatever, to the point that a lot of the books I get recommended are books by non people who aren't straight white men.
Mhm.
And that makes me super happy because I get all such great books. But like this is even people who have gone to the effort, like have managed to get into, have been able to publish books. And I think there's a lot of people who indie publishing has democratized it a lot. Um,
Yes.
because the way trad publishing works is like you have to be supported. It's almost like the landed class is allowed to write because
Mhm.
you don't get paid, like the way they structure the payouts. You can't make, it's really difficult to make a living off. Um, but even indie, and then I think like these are people who've managed to publish. Like how many people like would have been able to do incredible creative things and can't because our stupid capitalist system is set up to keep people, to keep the rich rich and the poor poor,
Mhm.
and to hell with all the, you know amazing art and writing and whatever they sacrifice along the way. Like it's
Yeah.
just unfortunate.
I'm going to take a moment to talk because I think probably a lot of people watching, which nobody's watching live, but who watch the replay may not know how that payout like works. So I think that there's a misconception about traditional publishing at large, and this misconception persists even among authors, not just among readers who haven't, like necessarily looked into it, but that if you get a traditional book contract, you are going to get a huge payout up front, and then you're going to get royalties after that. So, first off, those huge payouts, those huge advances are few and far between. They are reserved mostly for people who have already made a name for themselves because the big five traditional publishers are competing for those names, right? So, if you are an unknown name, even if you get a publishing contract, even if you get an advance, it's going to be small. It's going to be a couple $1,000s probably. Not these like $100,000 contracts that like you see in like movies and such like if that ever happened to unknown authors, that those days are gone. Secondly, those advances are a loan essentially. So you get that money and then it comes out of your royalties. And once you have made that money back for the publisher, that's when you start getting royalties. And thirdly, those traditional publishing royalties are significantly smaller than what you get as an indie author publishing directly to platforms and selling directly to readers.
Oh,
So
can I interject too?
please do.
Not only are the initial payouts not that high, even if you do get a high one, and this is based on I was following, and back when Twitter was not a Nazi hub. Um, I was following an author on Twitter who was incredibly popular. Her book was in the top, like New York Times bestseller for weeks and weeks on end. Like she was very popular, but she said she had to hold off work on the second book in the series and work on a different one because the way that they structure the payouts is it used to be one, I think it used to be one or two payouts. Now they've cut it into four. So like you get one quarter when you sign, you get one quarter when your book is first published, like when your book is published, you get one quarter. So essentially, even if you got $100,000 payout, you would see maybe $25,000 one year, and then 2 years later another 25,000, and then a year and a half later another 25,000. So even if you got a huge payout, you couldn't just be like, okay, well I'm gonna live off this while I write the next book, because you can't. You don't. They don't
Mhm.
pay out enough. Like they pay out small enough pieces over a long enough amount of time that you literally, even if you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can't live on that.
Yeah, there are like award-winning New York Times #1 best-selling authors who have day jobs because, and that's not a few of them. That's like most authors who are traditionally published, even if they're super popular, have day jobs. Um, so like you and I don't know a lot of traditionally published authors because I'm very active in the indie author community. I've said my entire career like I would not take a traditional publishing deal if it was offered to me, like no way no how. But I know a lot of indie authors who are full-time authors. I also know a lot who have day jobs, and some of those are because they want to have those day jobs, they enjoy them, or because they have, their family structure is such that it makes sense for them to have day jobs. And some of them are because they don't sell enough books. It's a lot. The world is obviously complicated, but I guess the point I'm making is that indie publishers have a lot more control over what we do. And again, like if I sell a book on Amazon, I get 70% royalties. If I sell a book directly to a reader, I keep everything except for the credit card fee. If I sell it in cash at an event, I keep everything. I mean, I pay for printing if it's a print book. if it's an ebook, I pay for like the little card that I have your download code on, which I think costs me 7 cents each. But yeah, so I might sell fewer books, but I make more per book, and that to me feels very much worth it. Also, I think there's also this conception that if you're traditionally published, all you have to do is write the book and then you're done. And that's not true either. Traditionally published authors still have to do most of their own marketing. I think there is, the traditional publisher will pay for like editing and cover design, and I think that's it.
And I don't think you tend to get, as far as I understand, you don't get much of a say as far as the cover design and stuff. Like they do that.
Yeah.
And
Um,
that would make me really mad.
yeah, I have a friend who had a couple of books. They've actually just released, she just got her rights back, which is awesome. But she had a couple of books with a small press, not even like a big five, but they like very badly mismanaged cover design and marketing and everything. And they had very strict rules about what marketing she was allowed to do, but then they weren't marketing it themselves. And so it was like, she's not like she's not selling the book, it's
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
well, but her other books are indie published and they're selling great, like, so why won't you let her handle this? And it's just like, it's a fucking mess.
Yeah.
So support indie authors. We are doing good.
Well, and
I don't
I
know
mean,
if that
honestly,
fizzled
I
out,
just
but
love how much it kind of does democratize
mhm,
writing. Like, again, it's like to be able to. I remember back when before I started doing indie, I was like, I'd write and then I'd query and whatever, and that's just an incredibly time consuming process. And it's so
mm,
you wait so long before you can see, like, you write the book and then you edit the book and then you query the book and then you whatever. So you're talking like 2 to 3 years between writing the book and seeing anything back from it. Like right now, I can literally write a book and have it out the door. Like I said, I write fast, so it's usually like a 3 to 4 month process max.
mhm,
Um, and so if writing is an income thing for you, if you're just writing as a hobby, first of all, more people can. There's not the barriers to it, so it's not like, which on the downside means, like, yeah, I'm sure a lot of crappy books get published. On the upside, a lot of books that are really good that wouldn't have been published because they
mhm.
already had their quota of queer authors. They already had their quota of black authors.
Yeah,
This is a First Nations book, but it doesn't talk about any of the it's just about happy people doing happy things, and we
we
only want
need
to hear about your
inspirational
trauma. We want
porn.
to hear about your
Yeah.
trauma. Um, like those kind of books can get published in a way that they couldn't, and I think I've even seen trad publishing kind of in some ways following. Like indie books will do things, and then trad publishing will be like, oh wait, I guess there's a market for that, and they'll do it. Um, but they would never take a chance on that. So I think it does. And
Yeah.
and then again, if you're doing it for an income thing, you can write your book, you can get it out the door, and you can start making money off it
Mhm.
in a relatively quick period. Like the only limiting factor is essentially is you. And even if you don't have the money for a really fancy cover, you can throw something up in Canva. Like, it's doable. You can get a book out the door without a
Mhm.
ton of upfront costs, and you can start seeing a return on that really quickly in a way you absolutely cannot in trad publishing.
Yeah, I made my own covers I don't make my urban fantasy covers because the genre expects something fancy, but I recently started writing these sapphic short stories, and I made
Oh
my
yeah, I
own
love your
covers.
covers for those ones.
And I'm gonna show my screen. I just pulled one up. Share screen. Yeah, I know. Sorry, it's showing me like how to share the screen. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing that. Calm down. So yeah, here is my cover for um can you see that? I don't
I can't
Oh,
see
here we
it.
go.
Oh,
Add to stage.
there we go. Oh,
So
that
that
looks
is my
really
cover
nice. I
for
don't think I've seen that
my
one.
first story of my Goddesses Gone Wild series. And yeah, it's like I made that in PicMonkey. which is like Canva, but I just like it better. Yeah, so it's like totally possible to make your own covers for certain genres. How do I stop? There we go. And yeah, there's a lot of resources out there that
There
you
are,
can use.
and I feel like indie authors to some extent do kind of, I mean, we kind of do have a bit of a barter economy, you know, even if you can't afford an editor, there's probably half a dozen people who would happily beta read for you,
Hmm.
um, and even just do some minor like, well, this is a weirdly worded sentence or whatever, and then with the expectation that at some point down the road you'll either beta read for them or you're beta read for someone else. It's you don't need a ton of resources to get started.
Yeah,
Um,
the indie author community is very supportive of each other. We're very like, and we're scrappy. That's the thing. If you're not scrappy, you're not going to make it as an indie author. But if you are, you've got a good chance.
yeah, like you gotta want it, man. But if you want it, you got a lot of people on your side. Um, yeah, like when I started out, I had a friend walk me through every step. Like I think she literally sat on the phone with me and helped me set up my Amazon account. Like and I've done that for a handful of people like
I've done
in
that for
return.
so many people. Literally,
And
if I'm at a market or a convention selling books, if somebody comes up to me and is like, I'm writing a book or I've written a book. I'm using this voice because they're always like very timid about it, not because I'm like mocking them. Um, I 100% always am like, here's my email address. Send me an email. I would love to chat with you. I don't have time right now. Please contact me. And like, I don't know, maybe a quarter of them do, but every time they do, I get so excited and I like email them back and like we chat. And sometimes I've done like, Zooms with them. And like, I am so excited to like help people get started as authors. Like, there's no reason not to. I am not in competition with you. I don't give a fuck. I am so happy if you succeed. Um, and yeah, I
well, I mean, like it's just from a purely like self-interested standpoint. Like if I read a book that I really love and it happens to be like fantasy, like what I do as soon as I get put that book down is I look for another fantasy book. So
mhm.
the more I write sci-fi, the more fantastic sci-fi writers I can help get out there. Like the more people are going to be like, wow, I really like that book, let me see if I can find another sci-fi book I might like.
Yeah,
Like it's really
totally.
not a competition.
Yeah, and I mean, readers can read so much faster than we can write. Like, yeah. So keep reading, people. Um, we've been talking for like 45 minutes. This
Oh
is
wow.
officially the longest live stream I've done on this channel, which is unsurprising. Like,
You have talked, like you and I have talked before, like
yeah.
I I don't
But
know how to set up, so
I'm gonna sign off and go do other things.
I'm gonna
But
finish my breakfast.
I'm gonna have some lunch. And I'm an
Sure,
hour
sure.
behind you.
Show show me how much better you are than I am.
Whatever. It's only because I had an appointment at 9 and like, which I love living in the 21st century because this is the second like appointment that I've had today and I'm still in my pajamas. So,
Love it when that happens.
all right.
Okay.
Thank you for watching, everybody. Oh, quick. Do you want to plug your books before we sign off?
Uh yeah. I don't know what to say. I write queer science fiction, mostly space opera. I've recently branched out into military. Um so if you like quirky, funny, um and not very conventional science fiction, yeah, you should check out my stuff. You might like it.
Okay, that was terrible. I'm gonna plug their
I'm
stuff.
sorry, that's why I'm a bad marketer.
Okay, so they have like 4 or 5 different series right now. Their first series, which just had its like 5-year anniversary, is The Ungovernable, and it is like this weird space opera heist situation that is amazing. With like just it's actiony and it's silly and it's phenomenal and I love it. Their second series, oh, that's called The Ungovernable. I don't know if I remember if I said that. Their second series is called Red
Singularity.
The Singularity. I think book 1 is like Redshift
Yeah,
or something.
book one
Yeah,
is Redshift.
The Singularity, it's like a first contact situation, although it's not set on Earth. It's like a colony that Earth did or something on, like, I don't know, a different planet, and then like there's this like big hole that opens in the sky and they have to like do this diplomatic mission, and there's like cannibals, and it's great. It's a little bit more serious than Ungovernable. The main character is queer and autistic, and their love interest is queer and probably ADHD, although I don't think it's ever said, and it's fantastic. The next one they wrote is they're writing 2 sort of at the same time, but they're set in the same universe. One is like a horror situation with this like medical crew that goes to these planets and everything goes horribly awry, and it's great. And then the other one is this like Navy space situation, with like a corrupt government and pirates, and yeah. So I have put their website in the description of this video, so you should check it out and read all the stuff. Okay, bye. End stream.